Now, you all have said it's the youth who are already in the juvenile detention system who are affected. So, would these be young people who've committed crimes?
Oftentimes, yes, and so one of the things that our stand with the San Mateo County Coalition for Immigrant Rights, our stand is that the juvenile system, delinquent system, should be separated from immigration system. These are these are two different systems that are set by representatives in order for them to keep them separate. Criminal court is set for crimes, and immigration is for immigration. So what we're doing here in San Mateo County, even though young people are committing crimes, they're being punished by being placed on being referred to ICE.
We're talking about young people how old?
We're talking about young people as young as we've seen 13 who are referred to ICE up to 18.
And the parents have nothing to say about it? I mean, they detain them, and this is before they go before a judge, and they can be sent all over the country. What would be the purpose of sending them to detention camps or wherever outside of California?
I can't speak for the motivation for referring the youth to ICE in the first place, but the reason that the federal government cannot hold them in California is it's a matter of bed space and where these immigration facilities are located. And so they're located all across the country, in Arizona, in Illinois, in New Jersey, and so these youth are being sent to facilities all over the country.
For how long?
For months at a time. It can take as little as 2 months to reunify with their parents, and it can stretch. We've seen youth be in these facilities for 8-9 months.
And so, what is it? And Juliet, you want to say something?
Yeah, and to add on to what Braulio and Helen are saying is, as Braulio said, the juvenile system is a whole separate system than the immigrant system, and referring these people to immigration and having them being held in different detention centers all over the country, we feel like that's like contradicting the whole juvenile system, because the juvenile system is supposed to provide a rehabilitative, it's supposed to detain the person so that they can have a rehabilitative opportunity, and what we're seeing is just they're being sent to these centers and being sent back to San Mateo County, which could even just strengthen it could just strengthen them to even cause more delinquency in the county.
So they haven't been before a judge. They haven't been sentenced, or a judge hasn't decided on their crime?
So in some cases they weren't sentenced yet, but in some cases they are. So I guess I'm just gonna bring up the old policy and the new policy. So in the previous policy, it was up to the probation officer. It was more kind of like, depending on your probation officer, will they refer you to ICE? It's more on the way that they see if you're like if you're a threat to society, or if they feel like you should be referred to ICE. But now in the new policy, it's more like they have different standards, which is like, if it has to do with them being in a certain criminal case with a certain drug, or if it's a really violent or serious felony. And yeah, it's just
something to note too is that the policy has changed. So what Juliet is referring to is that there was a point in time in which the probation officer, when a young person will come in, there was an intake officer, a probation officer. One of the questions that they asked in the questionnaire that they use are something along the lines of, are you a U.S. citizen? Are you born here? And oftentimes, based on the discretion of the probation officer or the intake officer, they would then pick up the phone and call ICE. This is prior to seeing a judge, to being charged with, or being charged with a crime. So, and at that time, what we were seeing was that oftentimes ICE will come and interview a young person, and if that person, if his or her charges were released, then he would be picked up and be transferred to ICE detention center. For those folks that were convicted of, or were found guilty of a crime, then they would serve their term in juvenile hall, and then after their term was done, they would be transferred over to a different, to a detention center. What we're seeing now, like Julie said, I want to be clear that the policy has changed a little bit, but it hasn't improved much, and it's improving a little bit. But our stand in San Mateo County Coalition is that no youth referral should be taking place. So now what's happening is young people, if they're found guilty or if they're being charged of a violent crime or a drug offense, then they are being referred to ICE.
Or to add on to what he said, if it's in the best interest of the youth, which
Do
is
the parents
probably-
have anything to say about this? Do ICE officials contact the parents and talk to them?
They do not. And so these young people, ICE goes into the juvenile hall and interviews the young person or calls them on the phone without notifying the youth's attorney, their private defender in the juvenile system, and without notifying the youth's parents.
Now, question for you. When people are arrested, ordinarily they're at their Miranda rights. So don't the youth have any rights at all?
They do have rights in the immigration system. There is due process in the immigration system as well as the juvenile delinquency system. And so the ICE officer is meant to give them a form that lists their rights. But many of these young people don't understand that form. They don't understand their rights. I've had young people say, well, they told me I had a right to an attorney, but I wasn't assigned an attorney yet, so, who...
And there is no advocate to be with the young person to
The
go over all of this,
problem is that
to contact the parents? Or?
ICE gets there before anybody else can get there. The probation officer doesn't notify the attorney or the parents or an advocate. ICE doesn't notify any of those people. And so we don't have a chance to get there before ICE interviews the
And
youth.
there is no obligation that all of this be done before an interview with ICE officials?
There is no obligation that they notify the parents, the attorney, an advocate, reach out to an immigration attorney.
How is it that this is being allowed?
they're just doing it.